Hey guys, it's Ornlu, and like so many other videos out there, this today is all about the two new civilizations with the Dawn of the Dukes expansion, the Bohemians and the Poles. This is recorded on the day after the expansion came out, so it's still very early on, but I did have the opportunity to sit down with Cysion, the lead developer of the expansion and the game in general, and we were talking about these civs for quite a while. The link to that will be in the description. I've also had the chance to actually play some games with this civ, so at least, I've put some thought and some experience into these two new civilizations. I'm just gonna, go through their bonuses, tech tree. Yeah, I'm sure that stuff is covered elsewhere too, but I'll at least do my best to give you, okay, how is this civ gonna play out? How does the theory translate? Again, first impressions at the very least, and what should you do with these civs? What are their good matchups? Where are you going to play them? So hopefully you will be getting something out of this in terms of learning, but without further ado, let's talk about the two new civilizations. I do want to try and be brief, but of course I like to ramble. So the first civilization is going to be the Bohemians. They are considered a gunpowder and monk civilization, and they represent, well, Bohemia, which, in case you are unfamiliar, is part of the modern-day Czech Republic. It's most of the western part of the country, including Prague, and they were their own duchy, Dawn of the Dukes, all that stuff, and that is why they are here. So, what does it mean, gunpowder and monk civilization? Now, the only other civ that I know off the top of my head that's like that is the Spanish. So you might be seeing some similarities there at first, but these guys are pretty unique, so let's go through those bonuses. We have blacksmiths, monasteries, and universities costing minus 100 wood. That means your blacksmiths are going to be only 50 wood, 75 wood for monasteries, and 100 wood for universities. Now, the thing is, you typically don't make more than one blacksmith or university, and maybe like 2 monasteries or something like that in a typical 1v1 game or even a team game. So you might be thinking, okay, how useful is this really? It's less about the actual savings and more about the timing advantage. And I'll get back to this later when I talk more about strategy and stuff like that. The second bonus is going to be the sort of defining one with the civilization, and that is that the chemistry tech and hand cannoneers are available in the Castle Age. So, what does this mean? Well, first, you can even see at the university, chemistry is available here. You get your +1 attack for all of your missile units, and you're able to train hand cannons as a result of that. No bombard cannons yet, though. Not until Imperial Age. This is obviously a very strong bonus. I will say that the Castle Age hand cannons is actually the less useful, or I guess probably the less relevant part of the bonus than the Castle Age chemistry, because where that's really important is giving your crossbowmen and skirmishers +1 attack in the mid-game, because, that's obviously what chemistry gets you. And that is incredibly powerful. It's in line with some of the stronger archer bonuses out there, and as I will get to, this civ will tend to play out more as like an archer, infantry, CG sort of thing, and that is going to be one of the core reasons for that, but still being able to mix in hand cannons in the Castle Age is quite useful. Remember that they have been getting several buffs recently. They have more HP, they're more accurate, and projectile speed is increased. Yeah, exactly. And it can be a nice thing to mix in during the mid-game. Also, importantly, if you research chemistry in the Castle Age, you'll get a similar effect to like Turks getting chemistry for free as soon as they hit Imperial Age, and that you can build your bombard cannons right away. And in a lot of matchups, and especially on closed maps like Arena, this is just incredibly powerful. You can get an early imp push going so much more quickly. And of course, unlike Turks, you have arbalests with this civ, so you can go for like a really scary early imp timing. You have arbalests and then get your bombard cannons out right away. Normally the weaknesses of those sorts of pushes is that, okay, you don't have any heavy siege, or like by the time you get sieged, your opponent will have time to react. This could be for some really deadly timings, but of course not without weakness, as I will get to in a little bit. The next bonus is Spearman Line deal plus 25% bonus damage. That is very, very good. You're getting some of the best halberdiers in the game. And it's really important for this civilization, like I was talking about with Cysion. Bohemians are not a fast civ, their army is slow. So being able to at least respond to your opponent's fast army is going to be very important. You gotta protect all your slow, expensive gunpowder units from getting just picked apart by cavalry and cav archers and stuff. So having this halberdier bonus is really important. It's going to be a very core unit with the civilization. And when it comes to, okay, how does this impact like your specific matchups? You don't poke down scout cavalry in 2 hits in the feudal age, so you don't have to worry about that. This isn't going to be like that scary. But in terms of mid-game to late game, oh yeah, these halberds and pikemen, they're going to take several less hits to kill, and they are a little bit weaker than Japanese halberdiers, but they're like some of the next best thing. They're probably on par with like your Burmese halbs or something like that. You know, obviously a little bit different bonuses, but halb's going to be very strong with this civ. Next is Fervor and Sanctity affecting villagers. Now, this might seem weird, but, you know, if you look at the monastery, these are really the only texts that make sense in terms of affecting villagers. And note that because they're monastery texts, they have to come in during the mid-game. So in mid-game, you can research Fervor for 140 gold at your cheaper monastery, remember? Oh, also, your university is cheaper for chemistry and all that stuff. 75 wood, and then you need to spend 140 gold, and that will make your villagers, and monks obviously, move 15% faster. Now, what is that relative to other bonuses? Remember that wheelbarrow and handcart, as well as the Berber civ bonus, all make villagers move 10% faster. So this is 15%, although it is coming in during the mid-game. So you will actually have the fastest villagers in the game, you know, by the time you get handcart and fervor. So that's pretty neat. And then, of course, Sanctity, it's 120 gold. Both of these texts are very cheap, and this will give your villagers plus 15 hit points, as well as your monks, obviously, so that a villager with Loom and Sanctity will have 55 hit points, but no extra armor other than, you know, what you get from Loom. Yes, their villagers are still going to be weaker and easier to raid than like mid to late game Incas or obviously Spanish with Supremacy, but these are still nice little bonuses. It makes your villagers harder to raid, makes it easier for them to run away, and it makes the faster movement speed also makes them a little bit more efficient economically. It's not that crazy in terms of like your farming rate, so don't think that like, oh my goodness, Bohemian sick farmers. No, not really. But it's a nice bit of utility and defense for the civilization, which, as you can see, is more late game oriented. Now, their last bonus is their main eco bonus, and that is your mining camp technologies are free. Which also, by the way, guys, it's why we saw Malians get the change so that their gold mines last 30% longer. People were like, oh, why are they getting this change? You know, no one asked for this change for Malians. It just seems so random. Nope, it's not actually random. Malians used to just get the gold mining upgrade for free, and with Bohemians entering the game, and getting all of the text for free, I mean, it just kind of was completely power creeping the Malian bonus. Now, Malians have another very strong eco bonus with their cheaper wood costing buildings, whereas Bohemians, although they technically also have cheaper buildings, it's much less powerful because the overall wood savings is going to be much less. Anyway, we'd have all of these upgrades for free, and that's going to be quite nice. It's going to help you in a lot of different ways. You can think of it kind of like, okay, you have a bit of the Turk bonus and a bit of the Korean bonus. The faster working gold miners, especially once you hit Castle Age, it's really going to help a monk rush, which I'm sure many of you are seeing already. This is going to be an excellent clown civ. So that's going to be very helpful. And then the faster working stone miners, it's going to be nice in terms of going for like a fast castle into unique unit play, which, as we will get to in a little bit, their Hussite wagon is incredibly strong. So being able to do that it's just a nice little boost. But on the other hand, as nice of an eco bonus as this is, it doesn't help you boom. So in the grand scheme of things, if you're just playing like the straight eco game, you're going to be falling behind a lot of other civilizations in the long run. Both the cheaper blacksmiths, monasteries, universities, and the free mining camp upgrades, these tend to lend themselves to more timing advantages, which are going to be very powerful, don't get me wrong, but it's less about, okay, this is just a raw, powerful economy. That's much more polls as far as the new civs go, and I'll get to that obviously later in the video. So those are their civ bonuses. You have a nice little mix of eco bonuses, and military bonuses, and defensive bonus, I guess, here. Lots going on, and let's see what else they have. So their team bonus is markets work 80% faster. Now, what does that mean? It does not affect your buying and selling at all, so don't be confused by that. What it does mean is that coinage, banking, guilds, and caravan all research 80% faster, which, okay, sure, why not? That's nice. But what's really important is that your trade carts research, or I guess train 80% faster. You know, you have Spanish with the more effective trade carts, you have Italians with Silk Road having cheaper trade carts. Bohemians can get the trade carts out faster, which is nice if like you weren't able to establish trade because you were under a lot of pressure, but you have like lots of resources banked up. You can turn those resources in your stockpile into trade carts much more quickly, you and your teammates. So that's a really nice bonus as far as, team games go. But notably, the only impact it will have in a 1v1 is you research guilds faster. So fast imp guilds, Byzantines, you better watch out. But in all seriousness, it's not really relevant in a 1v1, but that's okay because all of these bonuses are, going to be very powerful. Next, let's go over their unique techs. First, we have Wagenburg Tactics. Gunpowder units move 15% faster. Gunpowder units all tend to be on the slow side, so being able to move faster is going to be quite nice. Notably, it means that, one, your bombard cannons can micro better. Yeah, and your Haufniche, as I'll get to in a second. So that's going to be faster and quite nice in terms of micro. And also your hand cannons will be moving faster than archers and skirmishers. So you can probably run away from those guys a little bit better. Nice little boost. It will also affect your Hussite wagons, so that is another thing to consider. Just a nice little boost to the civilization. Your imp tech is the wild one. 800 food and 450 gold Hussite reforms. Monks and monastery upgrades have their gold costs replaced by food. This is pretty crazy because it turns your monks into trash units. That is something that's quite powerful because monks, they're not normally a late game unit, just because you have so many units at that point that individually controlling monks is almost impossible unless you're the AI. So normally you don't have like a bunch of like 10 to 12 monks in like mid to late Imperial Age. With Bohemians, just mixing in a bunch of monks just to heal up your army, to convert enemy cavalry or siege units, it's totally possible. As you can see, the Civ has a 100% open monastery tech tree. Toss in some monks in late game, especially against Civs that have lots of siege units or cavalry units. Let's see how that works out. And just to briefly go over their tech tree, I don't want to spend a ton of time on this, but then talk about strategy and what maps and matchups you want to play them, and then we'll go over to the Poles. Archers, I've talked about a little bit already. This is going to be your main military option in the early to mid game. So you're looking at arbalests that are fully upgraded besides thumb ring, which is very important because missing thumb ring means that you don't have the faster fire rate for your crossbowmen to go alongside your extra attack in mid game. So it's not like it's super overpowered in that way. It's like, okay, you get more attack, but your overall DPS is going to be fairly similar. Skirmishers, they don't really care about thumb ring as much, but it's at least worth mentioning. But you do have +4 defense in the late game, and that's going to be really important against archer civilizations, although the Hussite wagon and Haufniche will be doing quite well against those as well. Your mid-game crossbowman play, cheap university, get ballistics out nice and early, get chemistry out, and then in late game you can go for arbalest and bracer really quickly, and then you'll be getting +4 attack and arbalests in that timing window where you can really, really punish an opponent who's slower up to the Imperial Age. And of course, your hand cannons in mid-game. It's probably going to mostly come into play versus Eagle Warrior Civs and Goths with their Huskarls. Generally speaking, the reason we don't see hand cannons used versus those sorts of infantry units all that often is because they just take too long to get up and running, and by the time you get like 10 hand cannons, your opponent has like 30 Eagle Warriors or 30 Huskarls or whatever. If you get this hand cannon blob going in mid-game, it could be pretty deadly, so I want to see how that plays out in matchups versus the Eagle Warrior Civs as well as Goths. We'll have to see how that works out. Barracks. This is going to be a nice sort of supplementary building, I guess. You have everything. You have all the blacksmith upgrades, you got champs full upgrades, supplies, squires, arson. Your halbs are some of the very best in the game. Bohemians have very strong infantry. Again, the champion is another anti-eagle option potentially, and just, it's nice to have around. Halb's going to be very important in protecting all of your squishy ranged damage units. And like I said earlier, that's going to be very important for the civilization. Stable is where things get very sad, very, very sad. Like I said, you miss +4 defense, you miss Hussar, you miss Paladin, you miss Bloodlines, and you don't really have any sort of eco... Like, these eco bonuses don't really help you get a bunch of knights out quickly, except for, I guess, the free gold mining upgrades, but that's not the biggest of deals. Yeah, you're not going to be seeing cavalry with this civilization unless you really, really need it. Your siege workshop is pretty interesting. You have the Siege Engineers upgrade, notably, but you miss Siege Ram and Siege Onager. Now, the Haufniche, I guess I should talk about the Haufniche now. It is an upgrade to the Bombard Cannon in Imperial Age. So you can get Bombard Cannons out right away if you research chemistry in Castle Age, but then on top of that, you can pay for 950 food and 750 gold to get the Haufniche. It's like an Imperial Bombard Cannon, essentially. The biggest difference is, okay, so you got 10 more HP compared to the Bombard Cannon, 90 versus 80, 15 more attack, you have 55 attack versus 40. You have 1 more Pierce Armor, 2 melee armor, 5 Pierce Armor for Bombard Cannons, 2 melee armor, 6 Pierce Armor for the Haufniche, and both have the 12 range, 13 with siege engineers. But you're also, very importantly, getting more splash damage. I guess splash damage radius. I think it's like 0.85 tiles or something like that, versus the 0.5 of the bombard cannon. So you're going to be much stronger against like clumps of units. And you also get more bonus damage versus buildings, so you take down buildings in like a couple less volleys, I suppose. So it's a very powerful late game unit. It means that you don't really miss Siege Onager that much, but Siege Ram is still going to be kind of a bummer because it means that you go through enemy towns really slowly. So it's going to be a much more slow, creeping-oriented civilization, unless you're hitting those mid-game timings with your monk rushes and arbalest play and stuff like that. Blacksmith I already covered. Dock, don't pick the Civ on water maps. You miss way too many techs and don't have enough dock-related bonuses. Your cannon galleons, I guess, will move a bit faster, and you can get elite cannon galleon, as soon as you hit Imperial Age. Oh boy. Yeah, don't pick the Civ on water maps. University, you have everything except heated shot. Since you're not picking the Civ on water maps anyway, this is quite nice looking. You got masonry architecture, you have bombard towers, keeps fully upgraded, fortified wall, all that good stuff. Treadmill crane, I guess, can be nice as well. You do miss hoardings, so that's a little bit unfortunate, so your castles aren't quite as strong in late game, but still very strong Civ defensively. The Spearman bonus and then the better villagers, it all lends itself to being a good late game Civ, as well as bombard cannons being very good. All of this kind of goes together. Now, going back to the castle, let's talk about the Hussite Wagon. It is obviously their unique unit. It costs 110 wood and 70 gold. It's a siege weapon. It says here units behind it receive 50% less damage from incoming projectiles. This means that, okay, if you have a cavalier sitting behind a Hussite wagon, it has 4 pierce armor because it has +2/+2, and an enemy crossbowman shoots it and it has 7 attack. It would normally deal 3 damage, but because it's behind the Hussite wagon, the cavalier will only take 1.5 damage. Yes, that's nice, but the thing is that the Hussite wagons, just by being in front of any sort of, unit that's behind them, they're already soaking up a ton of fire anyway, so that's a very sort of minor effect. Really, this is just a super strong anti-archer siege unit. You can kind of think of it in a sort of similar vein to the organ gun, except it's much more expensive, it's a little bit faster, and you can see the stats here: 200 HP, 17 attack. It also fires several projectiles. It fires like a main cannonball and then a few little secondary cannonballs. 0 melee armor, 7 pierce armor, and 6 range. So a little bit less range than, say, an organ gun, but still pretty decent, but, still less than any sort of crossbowman or skirmisher, anything like that. But the 7 pierce armor, man, you're taking 1 damage from so much. And 17 base attack is massive. Now, before you start thinking, OMG, this unit is so OP, they take extra bonus damage against mangonels. And I'm not too sure yet if it's against like bombard cannons and stuff like that as well. I have to do more testing. I just kind of wanted to get this video out quickly. Yeah, mangonels guys are dealing like 100 damage if they hit the Hussite wagon head on. So you have to be really, really careful. Now, because of the very high damage of the Hussite wagon, you can also kill mangonels pretty easily. So it's going to be a very sort of like a skill-based matchup, and you just can't look away. Otherwise, you'll be wrecked by mangonels, onagers, and siege onagers. And we have the elite upgrade, by the way, 800 wood, 600 gold. That is very cheap. As far as elite upgrades go, especially since the Hussite wagon doesn't benefit from many upgrades, really you only get Wagenburg tactics and siege engineers. So the elite upgrade, you can see right here, it gives you 50 more HP. You go from 200 to 250. You get 3 more attack, 17 to 20, and you get +1 melee armor and +3 pierce armor. So they have 110 armor versus the 0.7 of the castle variant, and you have the same range. So it's a definite improvement. You're just tankier and deal more damage, but you still very much have the same weaknesses in late game. You're tanking all of the arbalest, cav archer shots, whatever, but you are getting absolutely wrecked by mangonels, and because they have a fairly slow fire rate, it means that you're also getting wrecked by cavalry. So that's just something that you'll need to consider. Still, because of how easy it is to get a castle up and running and just the fact that Hussite wagons are very strong, just fast castle into unique unit builds are going to be something that we're going to need to consider when playing the civilization or playing against it. Monastery, I am already rambling a very long time, but you have everything. Good stuff. Obviously, very strong monk civ. You can have those monk techs cost food, and monks cost food in late game. Obviously, they are a monk civilization in part. And finally, eco upgrades. You get the mining camp ones for free, which is very nice. And then you have everything else except for crop rotation. But if you're going to miss anything, it's either going to be crop rotation or stone shaft mining, because neither of those are the most important in the world. Still, like a solid eco civ, but not amazing. So if we put this all together, what can we say about the Bohemians? On Arabia, they're going to be okay, I think. They're not amazing, not horrible. They're still really slow, and lacking that mobility on such an open map, especially the new Arabia version, it's pretty rough. But your timings are still really strong. Your mid-game crossbow play is going to be sick. Your pikeman siege monk push is going to be very strong. And if you can sort of get the fight in a situation where mobility isn't as important, like, some sort of slow push going, this civ can do a ton of work. And it's got, everything you need to take down most army compositions. Against very heavy cav civs, you have your strong halberdiers and good monks. Against ranged civs, you have your Hussite wagons and Houfniches. And against infantry civs, you have your Castle Age hand cannons. So you have a lot of counter tools for whatever your opponent is doing, except for mobility, of course. So that's sort of the dynamic of the civ. Also, their eco is good, but it's not amazing. So the better eco civs in the game are going to outpace them, I guess, on that map. So I think, a solid mid-tier, maybe high mid-tier Arabia civ. On Arena, though, and other closed maps, this civ obviously is going to shine. It's got, everything going for it. You can go for an amazing monk rush. You can go fast castle unique unit. The gunpowder being very strong is great in any sort of BF team game, or Arena, obviously, as well. Houfniches are just going to snipe so much in late game, although except Britain arbalests could be an issue. But then you have your Hussite wagons to tank all of that damage, so it's going to be a top arena civ, but I don't think it's going to be insanely broken or anything like that. But obviously, we will have to see. In team games, this is obviously going to be a flank civ because your cavalry is terrible. But as a flank civ, I think it's going to be high tier, but not top tier. The mid-game timings with cheaper universities, Castle Age chemistry, even the hand cannon option, it's all going to be very nice. It's not going to compete, though, with Mayans or Britons or Ethiopians or Vietnamese, but it's probably going to be a step below that. And then being able to transition into all of the gunpowder in late game gives you a very, very deadly slow push. So that's something that's going to be more in line with probably Portuguese or Italians, probably something in that ballpark, maybe Byzantines. Nomad, they're going to be fine. Castle drop into Hussite wagons isn't going to be half bad. So overall, Bohemians, really interesting civ. The bonuses are all very specific in terms of what you're going to do. It's not like they have a super obvious game plan. I think there's a lot to explore with the civilization in terms of how they're actually played out, and I'll be really interesting to see how that is done in the coming months and stuff like that. So that's going to be Bohemians, and I hope you guys are excited for them, but of course, they are only half of the new civs. Of course, the second civilization of this expansion is the Poles, a long time asked for civilization. Naturally, they are a cavalry civilization. They represent modern day, Poland. Makes sense. As we'll see, they've got a lot of stuff going on, but you can't slot them into the normal cavalry civ game plan that you can with, say, a Persians or Lithuanians or something like that. They're going to be playing out a little bit differently. So first bonus, villagers regenerate hit points. 5 in Dark Age, 10 in Feudal Age, 15 Castle, 20 in Imperial, hit points per minute, that is. It's a nice little bonus that it's going to be, I think, most useful at very low levels and very high levels, because it's slow regeneration. I mean, you're talking 40 hit points for a villager with Loom, so in Imperial Age, it still takes you 2 full minutes to get from 1 HP to full HP. That said, being able to survive, okay, maybe a villager took damage from a boar, that villager will eventually be healed up and then be much harder to snipe. Again, it's just a nice little defensive bonus. It'll make them better in villager fights, which is going to be, I think, interesting when it comes to tower rush potential, so I'll get to in just a second. It's just a nice little bonus. I don't think it's going to be anything world-shattering, but it's going to make your villagers just a little bit more difficult to kill, and it's like, okay, if you're against Poles, you need to kill the villager. You can't just damage the villager and come back to snipe it later, because then the villager will just be healed up at that point. So, nice little bonus, nothing too wild, mostly defensive/utility. Their main bonus is Full Work replaces Mill, and I'll get to that in a second. It's essentially a food bonus, but it's a little bit complicated. Their last civ bonus is another sort of defensively oriented one, and I guess economically oriented one, but you've got stone miners generate gold in addition to stone. Now, at this point, I believe the rate is 0.5 gold for every stone you mine. So if you mine 10 stone, you'll have 5 gold in the bank just for free. It's a nice little bonus that encourages you to gather stone early on. It does, I think, make a potential like Men-at-Arm Tower Rush play a bit more interesting. Like you're just mining stone and then getting a little bit of gold to like afford the Men-at-Arm upgrade with your villagers that also replenish HP. I think that could be potentially interesting with the Civ, but I'm getting ahead of myself. In the long run, you don't mine that much stone compared to how much gold you mine. So it's not like it's going to be like the Malian Civ bonus now or Mayans. It's not, I think, going to be quite as good, but it's still just going to be a nice little boost to your gold income throughout the game. Notably, though, Poles aren't a Civ that have a ton of very good gold options, so it's more like you can just sustain your cheaper army longer. And I'll get to that in just a second. So it's a nice bonus, but not anything that's going to have a massive impact in a game. So your team bonus is going to be the scout line gets +1 attack versus archers. Notably, this means that they take 1 fewer hit to kill archers in the Feudal Age, and I'm sure in Castle and Imperial Age it is going to be a nice little boost as well. It's going to be useful in both 1v1s and team games. You're using scouts at some point, probably, if you're playing a team game in the pocket, and in 1v1, even you're just having your starting scout do better against archers, because archers does include archers and skirmishers, and even like cav archers and stuff like that. So it's kind of like the Persian bonus with knights, getting +2 attack versus archers. Same deal. You know, it's not going to be anything world ending, but it does make your scout play a little bit stronger, and these guys have very good scouts, as I'll get to later. Your unique techs are going to be Slakta privileges. Knights cost -60% gold. Now, before you panic, they miss plate barding armor at the blacksmith. So just know that. It's not going to be anything that crazy. However, 500 food, 300 gold for this tech. It's fairly cheap. You get it in late Castle Age. Your knights are going to be costing 60 food and 30 gold. That's right, your knights are going to be costing as much as a samurai. That's obviously really good. You can sustain knight production in mid-game, late-game, early Imperial Age, you know what I mean. It's going to be good. However, I still am not too sure if that's going to make them a desirable pocket civ in team games, because missing +4 defense is absolutely massive. You know, as soon as your enemy gets like Arbalest and chemistry, bracer, all that stuff, your knights are just going to drop like flies, your cavaliers. They really, really, really do fall off in late game. Then we have our Imperial Age unique tech, and that is going to be Lechitic Legacy. 750 food, 550 gold. It says light cav deal trample damage, but it's actually all the scout line. That's good. Now, it is trample damage in the same vein as battle elephants, and not like Logistica Cataphracts or Druzhina Slav infantry, so it's not that good. You're probably only going to be dealing like 2 to 3 trample damage as opposed to 5, but I mean, you're getting your scout line with trample damage, and that's going to make them a lot better against clumped up units like archers or skirmishers or even infantry, stuff like that. It's just, you know, more damage. It makes their late game scouts harder to deal with. And remember, they also are going to be getting extra attack, and they will be getting the Winged Hussar as their Hussar replacement, which I will get to in a little bit. So you can see both of these unique techs are very, very powerful, and are really just balanced by the fact that, okay, you have these really strong cav techs, but you don't have +4 defense in late game. So really that's going to be the biggest dynamic with the Civ. It means you're really strong in specific situations, but that's why I'm saying you can't just sort of slot them into a pocket team game on Arabia and just expect to be able to play super standard with them, because more likely than not, you're just going to get absolutely swamped by late game with like Franks and stuff like that. So we'll have to see. But you do have 2 unique units, sort of, and a unique building with this civilization. First, I want to talk about the Folwark. That is their Civ bonus. And you can see here, unique building of the Poles. What this is, okay, so it replaces the mill. It also provides 5 population space like a house, but it also costs 25 more wood than a mill, so it's like you build a mill and a house at the same time. Notably, it says here that build near forage bushes or other sources of food to gather food faster. That doesn't mean anything. It's actually just very similar to the actual mill description. You know, build near forage bushes or other sources of food to gather food faster. There's no actual bonus to foraging. It's just farms, guys. But what do you do with farms? Well, when you drop a farm adjacent to the Folwark, it will give you 10% of its food right away. So what does this mean? If you have, say, horse collar researched, your farms will have 250 food on them. Once you complete the farm, 25 food, 10%, will instantly be deposited into your stockpile, and then the farm will have 225 food remaining, so it's not like your farms last longer, you just get a little bit of that food from the farm right away. This can totally add up. The Folwark is a 3x3 building. It means that you can place 8 farms around it, and they'll be getting the benefit from the Folwark. No, you can't double up. Like, you can't have 5 Folwarks next to one farm and then have the farm get like a ton of extra food. No. That's not how that works. Also, the farms have to literally be adjacent to the Folwark, so you can't have it be like, oh, like 1 tile away or anything like that. It really does need to be next to this building, but getting all of that extra food, it really does add up. It's a very strong food bonus, but it's kind of like the opposite of the Khmer bonus. Like Khmer, you get the food instantly as the villagers gather it, but you place the farms anywhere you want. With Poles, it's like you need to be very deliberate in terms of where you place your farms relative to your Folwarks and your town centers, and then you'll be getting your food benefit if you're able to do that successfully. Now, something that's definitely worth considering here is that if you're building your farms next to your Folwarks, it means that the farms are not next to a town center, so they're just really, really easy to raid. And especially if we think of, the very open version of Arabia now, it's going to be really dangerous to be placing farms near your Folwark, so maybe you just need to focus on getting walls down earlier, but you do have your regenerating villagers and the stone mining bonus to maybe incentivize a bit more defensive play. But if you can get these guys in a safe area, they will be helping you out a ton all game long. I'm pretty sure with crop rotation, farms have 550 food, I think. So you'll be getting 55 food every time in late game that a villager will be constructing a new farm. So it's not just a one-time thing, it's like every time the farm is reseeded. It's a really interesting bonus. It can give you a lot of extra food, but you're going to need to adjust your gameplay accordingly, and it's something that can potentially be exploited. You can see that all 3 of the Civ bonuses for Poles are all about the economy, in some way or another. Economy and defenses. Anyway, moving on to their castle unique unit. I know I'm kind of going in a different order than with Bohemians, but oh well. You have the abou, which is 55 food, 20 gold, so just a little bit cheaper than a champion, but more expensive if you consider supplies. It is an infantry unit which can damage the armor of units it's fighting. So what does that mean? Say you have a knight that has +2/+2. Every time the abou attacks, the knight will lose 1/1 armor. So if it has 4/4 armor, then it will go to 3/3 armor after 1 attack, after 2 attacks 2/2, after 3 attacks 1/1, and after 4 attacks it will be at 0/0. It stops at that point. You can't go into the negatives with the abous. So they get more powerful the more hits they get in. They are fairly slow, but to compensate for that, they are very tanky. If you look at the Castle Age stats on these guys, 80 HP. That is a ton of HP. You're looking at around 33%, in fact, you're looking at exactly 33% more than a Longswordsman, which have 60 HP, and you have 2/2 armor, so the same armor as a Knight, but you only have 8 attacks, so you have less attack than a Longswordsman. But still, you're getting more attack overall if you're able to get these guys with several attacks over time. And then, of course, if you compare it to the Imperial Age version, it's a cheap elite upgrade, 800 food, 600 gold. That is very much on the cheap side of things. You'll be getting 95 HP, so 15 more HP, 2 more attack, and I think a little bit more bonus damage. But really, it's not that big of a bonus, I guess, in Imperial Age. No more armor or anything like that. You don't move any faster, I'm pretty sure. So how do you use these guys? I would say that you probably want to use them instead of Longswordsmen or Champions in most situations, so long as you can have the castles to make them. But what's interesting is that they don't really combo with cavalry well. Like, Poles are a cavalry civilization, but this unit is going to combo much better with archers, because if you have the obouks in the front, and they strip away the pierce armor from whatever you're fighting, then any Arabs you have behind are just going to absolutely shred them. So I think that's going to be sort of a potential imp army composition with the Civ, is like obouk plus like halbs maybe plus arbalests. It's definitely a powerful unit, but you are still going to struggle against like just heavy cavalry in mass. Like that's just, even if you take away the armor, cavalry units are just still better pound for pound, and they're going to kill you. So it's not like it's going to be, I think, too oppressive of a unit. Also, yes, you have 2 pierce armor, but you're slow, and archers will still pick you off from a distance if you're not careful. But lastly, of course, we cannot have the Poles without having the winged hussar. Yeah, it's kind of outside of the AoE2 time frame, but there would be riots in the streets if there wasn't, if they introduced Poles but didn't have winged hussars. So this is a unit that is unique to Poles and Lithuanians. It is a scout upgrade. You get it instead of the regular Hussar upgrade. It is more expensive. It is 600 food and 800 gold. You're getting 5 more HP compared to a Hussar, base 80. I guess you can't really compare super easily. I guess I can just tell you. Hussars have a base 75 HP. The winged Hussars are going to be having 80 HP. Hussars have 7 base attack. The winged Hussars have 9 base attack. They have the same Pierce Armor at 2, so they have the same Pierce Armor as Hussars, but they also will get 1 melee armor to help a bit in, melee fights. And also, as a little homage to fighting the Ottomans, winged Hussars get a small bonus versus gunpowder units. I believe it's +4. Now, as Poles, you get the trample damage and the extra attack, but you miss the last armor upgrade. So again, we're looking at a unit that's very, very strong, but also pretty flimsy. You only have 5 more HP than a regular Hussar, so missing +4 defense means that you're going to die to ranged units pretty quickly. Versus melee units, you're going to be doing a lot better, though, because, you have just better combat stats. This is going to be a super strong unit in late game, especially fueled by your full work food eco in the late game. But before I jump too far into strategy, let's talk about the tech tree, because I like just mixing up the order, even with the 2 civilizations that I'm doing in a video. Anyway, what you guys will be seeing here is that compared to, again, just your basic cavalry civ, Poles have a pretty broad tech tree, and you'll find that most stuff is above average, but not amazing. So starting with the archery range, you have a lot of options. You miss hand cannons and you miss Parthian tactics, but you've got arbs, you've got thumb ring, but you also miss ring archer armor, as well as plate barding armor. In the late game, facing strong archer armies can potentially be a bit tricky because you don't have that last armor upgrade for your skirmishers. Your own arbs will likely be getting cut down, your cav archers. I guess you have all the attack upgrades, but you're missing ring archer and Parthian tactics, so you're going to be very flimsy with your cav archers. And you're going to be relying on just masses of units just swamping your opponent's ranged army. Still, you have all the options for mid-game to early late game. Notably as well that having a very strong food eco from the full works does mean that you have a strong early imp arbalest timing, sort of in a similar vein to Vikings or Byzantines or Malay. So that's something that you really need to consider when playing against this civilization. Now looking at the barracks, you have everything, all the blacksmith upgrades, all these guys, except for Halberdier. And this is the one thing I'm a little concerned about for Poles. You don't have tanky cavalry, and you don't have halbs. So if you're just against a civ that has better cavalry, I worry that they're gonna struggle. Because the obooks aren't really great versus cavalry. Again, your cavalry, it's gonna be probably maybe cost efficient, but not population efficient. But if your opponents just get a bunch of, paladins or something, I can see Poles potentially struggling. I've seen that a little bit in just the few games I've played and casted, but having pikemen only could be a bit of a weakness for the civ, and I'll tell you right now, I think that Poles are going to struggle just against civs that can field better, stronger cavalry. But still, you have fully upgraded champions, and that's going to be nice against Huskarls and Eagle Warriors and all that stuff. Your stable, I've already talked about it quite a lot. You've got your winged Hussars, you've got Cavaliers, Bloodlines, Husbandry, but you miss +4 defense, and that's a little bit sad for the civ. And when I say a little bit, I mean it's very sad, but it's also the only thing that balances them. You just get the knights that are very, very cheap, but weak. And then you get the winged Hussars that are a little bit weaker, but also very, very strong, but they're also a trash unit, so it's not like they're an amazing gold unit. Which, as you guys are seeing, I think, although you get extra gold with the civilization, your best unit, the winged Hussar, it's not a gold unit. And in a lot of situations, you're not making a ton of gold-heavy armies. So it's going to be more about, okay, can you get these efficient trades and sustain your cheap knight production long enough, or maybe just try and get out enough arbalests to overwhelm your opponent or something like that. Moving now to the siege workshop, it's okay. You do miss siege engineers, which is definitely a bit unfortunate for the civ, but you do have bombard cannons, very important. Missing Heavy Scorpion isn't the biggest of deals, and then missing Siege Onager, you'd rather have it than not have it, but still, I don't think it's going to be the biggest deal in the world. Having Siege Rams, having Bombard Cannons, those are the most important things to have at the Siege Workshop, and most everything else tends to be a luxury for a civ in their tech tree. But these two guys tend to be the most important, and Poles have access to them, so their Siege is okay. Blacksmith, already talked about. Their dock, it's pretty bad. Don't play poles on water maps. You don't even get to make good use of the full work if you're making fishing ships. Like Bohemians, very much a land civ. University, you do have a few holes here and there. No heated shot. Again, don't play them on water maps. No siege engineers, I talked about. Again, it's something that's nice to have, but not really critical. Missing architecture, again, it's nice to have, but it's not super important. You do have hoardings, and interestingly, you have keeps with arrow slits and bombard towers and fortified walls and treadmill crane and all that stuff. So something that you can potentially see in late game with the poles is just bombard tower spam, or maybe even keep spam, because, well, you don't have that much to spend gold on, so bombard towers could just be one of your few ways of making something that's very gold intensive and powerful, especially if you're, mining a lot of gold and then mining stone to give you extra gold and stone. It's like, spend it on something, right? I mean, I guess you do miss architecture for that, but still, you have most of everything that you need there. And, defensively, poles are a pretty strong civilization. I mean, you've got the villager bonus to help your vills stay alive, and just a very, I guess, inexpensive army to just spam at an opponent who's attacking you. Castle, like I said, I mean, nothing too wild. We already talked about most of everything. Your monastery, it's okay. You miss atonement and illumination and heresy. Heresy, this civilization is not about having very expensive, strong units like Bohemians are, so missing this is not a big deal. Atonement means that you can't really play monk wars, but you probably don't want to be doing that most of the time anyway. You want to be going like scouts on arena. And illumination, it's just kind of a nice thing to have, but it's not as important as block printing or theocracy. So, I mean, your monks, they have the basics for what they need, but you're not going to, they're not Bohemians, right? They're not a super big monk civ. But redemption there, sanctity there, block printing there. These are the three most important upgrades, and you do have access to all three of them. Your economy, you miss two-man saw and gold shaft mining, but you do have stone shaft mining for your stone miners. And you got guilds, and your crop rotation is actually going to be something that is very useful to get, because you're just getting that much more food from your full works. So your economy is going to be very strong. I definitely think that they're a better civ economically than Bohemians, just because that full work bonus is very, very helpful if you can make good use of it. And that's really the tech tree of Poles. Now, with all of this in mind, how do we want to play them? And that's the thing, is you can kind of slot these guys anywhere, and they'll be above average. I do think that they are going to be a better Arabia civ than Bohemians, because you do have strong cavalry options. And I think winged hussars in late game are going to be really, really sick. Cheap cavalier, they can definitely swamp an opponent in late Castle Age, early Imperial Age as well. Mid game, you've got the knight play that's going to be totally fine. And the archer play all the way up to arbalasts, again, it's all totally fine. Missing ring archer armor and +4 defense doesn't matter if you're just killing them right away. And because your eco bonus is a food eco bonus, it just means that they're so flexible in what they can go for. I mean, you can go for pikemen, monks, and siege if you really want to. It's not going to be terrible, again, until late game. And your siege is all right, and it's going to be about, can you defend your full work eco from enemy raids? That's going to be the important thing, because Arabia is so open now that walling in your full work eco is going to be really tricky, and being able to do that successfully is, I think, going to be the key to playing poles on that map. And if you're playing against poles, again, just try and raid them to death. Or if you're in a late game situation, try and defend your base against the winged hussar raids as much as possible. And then just smash them in the face with a better army, because poles are going to be lacking in terms of just raw strength in the late game. On Arena, again, I think we're looking at a civ that is okay, not amazing. You can go for an early imp arb timing with the full works, which are going to be totally safe on that map, which is going to be pretty nice. But cavalry tends to not be super good on Arena. And you do have bombard cannons, so again, that's nice. You have siege rams, that's nice. Bombard towers, it's all good. But you don't really have anything to sort of put you over the top against a lot of, stronger civilizations in terms of just the armies they field. Obuks maybe can get some play in that area, maybe like Arb plus Obuk plus Siege. Yeah, not really, I think, a top tier arena civ, just kind of maybe middling to above average. Don't play them on water. In team games, it's kind of interesting because they're an above average pocket, but not top tier. They're probably an above average flank too, just because you have, Arbalest's Thumb Ring, the full works, but they're not, again, top tier. So it's like, they're fine on flank, they're fine on pocket. There aren't that many civs like that. So it's like, if you just have random positions, you just random poles, you're not going to be too unhappy no matter where you find them in a team game. But I don't actually see these guys being picked all that often. I guess on like Nomad and stuff like that, not so great because of the full work. Yeah, you don't really get to make good use of it. Yeah, that's pretty much it with the polls, I think. So thank you all so much for watching. I know this is just a lot of tech tree and talking, but I hope you guys learned something. Hope you, I guess, found it enjoyable or whatever. Be sure to leave a like if you did. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.